Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about Tyrone Tracy Jr., running back out of Purdue. Tracy Jr. played at Iowa from 2019 to 2021 before transferring to Purdue. And the reason why we're talking about him today is he had a pretty decent combine. There was a couple people that were asking of doing a running back video on him to kind of see what he'll end up as at the NFL level. So this is going to be one of the first videos that I've done on the position where I kind of go over everything. So their production, their athleticism traits, and kind of just this is sort of like a final overall grade on him for his pre-draft potential. So first off, starting with offensive market share scores. If you're new to the channel, new to the stuff that I do, you can see kind of an idea of what it is right here. And then getting to it, he had a 30 percentile total offensive market share production score, 95 percentile receiving market share production score, and a 45 percentile touchdown market share production score. He was essentially a receiving back. That was the biggest thing that he really did well in his data profile. But again, he didn't exactly produce in the manner that you would like a running back to produce. Most all-pro running backs, Pro Bowl running backs, have 70 to 80 percentile in terms of their total offensive market share data. He didn't quite hit those areas, so that definitely is a concern for him. Moving on to efficiency scores. To learn more about that, you can pause video right here. His efficiency scores were a little bit all over the map. His touch AV, or I should say, his average yards per touch was in the 60 percentile. His RRAV, or receiving yards per reception, was very low, 20 percentile. And then his touchdown percentage was about the high 50 percentile in terms of that particular area. Again, in terms of his production, a lot of this could be because he got a lot of screens. I don't know. I haven't seen his film. But a lot of times when receivers have very low yards per touch, or I should say yards per reception, typically it's because they had a lot of screen passes and those types of things. And, from that kind of perspective. So, again, I don't know 100%, but I'm just kind of assuming based on his data. Usually, running backs that produce like this, that's why their receiving data is so poor. So essentially, he's a running back who was not really utilized. I mean, he had a high amount of receiving market share, but he wasn't exactly killing it as a receiver. So that's an interesting point in terms of his efficiency data. Now, moving on to his athleticism traits. The reason why we're here, the reason why I'm doing a video on him, is because he definitely has some intriguing athleticism traits. This is how you kind of get my scores in terms of that. I look at, the vertical and the broad jump, the 40-yard dash, short shuttle, three cone, measured against mass density, which gives you the scores that you're about to see. And based on those scores, he had an 87 percentile explosion score, 73 percentile in terms of his speed, and then he had a 90 percentile flexibility score. The flexibility score kind of judges dynamic speed, which is the short shell three cone plus the 40. And then, of course, the explosion drills deal with, explosiveness, like vertical broad jump, though, lower body explosiveness. This was out of 1,403 running backs since 1999. But these are really good athleticism traits for him. He doesn't quite hit the Pro Bowl threshold in terms of his speed score, but he does hit some good marks in terms of everything else. So I would say he does a pretty good job athletically, to kind of look at him from that perspective. Moving on to his adjusted production scores. Adjusted production is the context production, how productive he is for his age, his level of competition, and of course the team that he's on. And when you look at adjusted production scores for him, his age is very old. He was like in the 3rd percentile in terms of his age, 64 percentile in terms of his MSA rating, and then 43 percentile in terms of his pass rating. The pass rating, of course, has the efficiency scores, and then the MSA rating takes out those scores. It just looks at, yardage, receptions, touchdowns, essentially. So his adjusted production is just not that great for him, and that's kind of the biggest thing, is that he is definitely athletic, but his production is just not exactly where you want it to be. Moving on to some comparisons for him. These are all the running backs that compared similar to Tyrone Tracy Jr. Based on his production profile. Keep in mind, again, he is a unique player. There are some players that are kind of similar, but if you look at the ages, I can kind of give you a better idea about them. I think Tracy Jr. has more in common with a guy like Mario Fannin, Michael Smith, than guys like Devontae Freeman or Kenyon Drake or James Cook, who were just much younger prospects. So I think overall, that's kind of what you're looking at with Tracy. He's more so a backup, rotational back than anything else. And I don't really see a long-term starter, despite his athleticism traits being so good. Moving on to the outlook for him, I think Tyrone Tracy Jr. profiles as a backup to spot starter receiving back. He has elite receiving production and has elite athleticism traits, but he has never been able to put it together in college. Tracy Jr. could find a home on the right team if he focuses on his receiving skills, but again, I think he didn't really do a whole lot of receiving things in terms of his production. He wasn't a guy who had a really high yards per reception score. Probably was used in a lot of screen game type things, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I'm just assuming based on his production, but how he produced is definitely indicative of a guy who's mostly used on screens and those types of things. So based on those kind of ratings with him, again, more of a backup than anything else. But thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Jim Coburn. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video. Tell me what you think about Tyrone Tracy Jr. Are you a big fan of his? Are you a little weary about him? Does this kind of confirm your thoughts on him? Also, check out my Twitter or X page, Gymmetrics. If you want to ask me some questions and stuff on Twitter, that's probably the place I spend the most time in terms of, connecting with people. Then, of course, check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/jcoburn. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace!